You're sorting through a handful of old pennies, maybe from a coffee can in the garage, maybe from a dusty jar you haven't touched in years. And suddenly, you freeze. Because one of those ordinary-looking coins could be the key to a million-dollar discovery. Today, we're diving into a story most collectors have never heard, a story that starts with the 1977 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny and ends with a jaw-dropping value of up to $1.6 million. Let's begin where all great treasure stories begin, with a secret hiding in plain sight. Decades ago, as the Denver Mint pushed out billions of Lincoln cents, something strange happened behind those mint doors. A small batch of planchets and dies, meant for testing, never made it into official records. Rumors spread that a handful escaped into circulation. No one talked about it. No one admitted it. But every so often, one of these off-metal, misstruck, or experimental anomaly pennies surfaces in whispered conversations among top-tier collectors. A coin that looks normal enough to spend on gum, but rare enough to change a person's life overnight. And yes, one of these 1977 D pennies has been estimated by some private collectors to be worth around $1.6 million. Not because it's old, not because it's shiny, but because it isn't what it appears to be at all. And here's where things get interesting. Because you could easily mistake this coin for any other copper-colored cent lying in a drawer. Before we get deeper, take a second. Reset your attention. Think about every penny you've ever ignored. Every one you've left on a counter. Every one you've swept into a container in your closet. One of them, just one, could be the difference between an ordinary day and the moment you join the elite list of collectors who struck gold without even realizing it. Let's start with the whispers from the mint employees of the era. Some claimed a batch of copper planchets from earlier years accidentally mixed with transitional materials. Others insisted a rare die variety was created and destroyed, except for a few coins that slipped out. A couple collectors swear they've seen a 1977 D penny struck on a foreign planchet, lighter in weight, with eerily sharp details, but an unusual ring when dropped. Nobody can agree on the exact origin, but everyone agrees on this. The rarest versions of this penny shouldn't exist, and that's exactly why they're so unbelievably valuable. Now breathe. Reset again. Because here's where your eyes become your greatest tool. That if you ever hope to catch this million-dollar ghost coin, you must know precisely what to look for. Start by holding any 1977 D penny under a strong light. The first giveaway is weight. A normal 1977 D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If yours is drastically lighter, closer to 2.5 grams or below, you might be holding an off-metal strike. That alone could launch its value into the stratosphere. Next, listen. Seriously, drop the penny gently onto a hard surface. A normal copper cent gives a dull clink. But these rumored experimental strikes? They ring sharper, almost like a small bell. Then inspect the surfaces. Look for unusually crisp details on Lincoln's coat, beard, and hair. Look for a perfectly centered strike with almost proof-like sharpness, but on a business strike coin. Some of the million-dollar examples display tiny doubling on the date or the word trust. Not dramatic, but just noticeable enough to distinguish them from common coins. And don't ignore the D mint mark. On the rarest version, the mint mark is slightly tilted and appears almost punched twice, but faintly. You'd miss it if you didn't know what to look for, and that's why so many have gone unnoticed. Another quick attention reset. Imagine finding one of these. Imagine holding a penny the world ignored for nearly 50 years and realizing it's worth more than most people's houses. That's the dream collector's chase. That's the thrill. Now here's the emotional part of this story, because this coin is more than metal. It's a reminder that unbelievable fortune sometimes hides in the most ordinary places. Think about the generations of people who handled these coins without a second thought. Cashiers, kids buying candy, drivers paying tolls. None of them knowing that a tiny, misstruck cent could one day be valued at over $1 million. It gives you chills. It makes you wonder what's sitting in your pocket right now. And let's reset once more. Because here's the part most collectors overlook. Sometimes the value comes from error, and sometimes it comes from survival. That a few 1977 D pennies were struck using dies that weren't properly prepared. Dies that created unusually crisp lines, deeper than normal impressions, and almost sculpted features. These coins weren't supposed to leave the mint. Many were melted. Only a few escaped. And those few? They command incredible value because they represent events the mint desperately tried to erase from history. Now imagine discovering a coin like that. Imagine sending it to a grading service and hearing the grader pause, lean in, and say, "Where did you get this?" That's the power of a coin the experts only whisper about. And yes, the price tags are real. $1 million real. A coin like this appearing at auction would generate shockwaves across the collecting world. Let's walk through the checklist one more time, slowly, because this is the knowledge that could turn an average collector into the next headline. You need to look for an unusually light weight, around 2.5 grams or less. You need to look for an exceptionally sharp strike, the kind you don't normally see on 1970s business strikes. You need to listen for that unexpected high-pitched ring. You need to inspect the mint mark for subtle doubling or a strange tilt. You need to watch for faint doubling on the date or the word trust. Don't ignore it. Sometimes that feeling is the first clue that you're holding something extraordinary. Take one more deep breath and reset your attention again. Because here's the truth you must remember. Most million-dollar coin finds happen by accident. Not in auctions, not in elite collections, but in pockets, drawers, jars, basements, and forgotten boxes of loose change. The next one could be yours. And if that doesn't inspire you to check your coins tonight, nothing will. The 1977 D Lincoln penny is one of the most overlooked dates of the entire series. And that's exactly why the rare versions are so dangerous. They hide perfectly among the billions of ordinary ones. They don't stand out. They blend in. They wait. All it takes is one person, one moment, one careful look to reveal what everyone else ignored. Picture this. You pick up a penny that looks like any other. But under the right light, at the right angle, the truth reveals itself. Your heart races. Your hands shake. You realize you've just discovered what collectors spend their entire lives searching for. A coin worth not just a fortune, but a story, a legacy, a miracle in copper. A real possibility hiding in plain sight, overlooked by millions of Americans who have no idea what treasure might be slipping between their fingers every single day. And the one coin stirring up the most shock, confusion, and disbelief recently isn't old, it isn't silver, and it isn't rare in the way most collectors think. It's a 2005 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. A coin so common you've probably tossed one into a tip jar this week without a second thought. But behind that simple date and that missing mint mark is a mystery that has collectors pacing their floors at night, because something happened in 2005. Something the mint never publicly explained. Something that left a small number of pennies unlike anything else that left the presses. And for nearly 2 decades, the truth has been whispered between collectors like a ghost story at a campfire. A tiny batch of 2005 pennies struck with abnormal die characteristics, microscopic metal flow patterns, and missing identifiers that should never have left the mint floor. These coins almost shouldn't exist, yet they do. Picture this. Somewhere, someone opened a roll of pennies from the bank, glanced at the date, shrugged, and pocketed it. And now that very coin, the one they handled, tossed into a drawer, forgot about, is quietly sitting somewhere in America worth over $1 million. And they never knew. That's the kind of thought that sends a shiver down the spine of every collector who has ever dumped a handful of change on a table and wondered if the universe hid something special just for them. Now, if you're watching this, I know exactly who you are. You're the kind of person who checks their coins before spending them. The kind who has chased down rumors of doubled dies, odd strikes, off-center errors, and that one magical coin everyone else swears is just a myth. But this one isn't a myth. And the deeper you go into the story of the 2005 no mint mark penny, the stranger it gets. What if a coin minted in the billions has a tiny handful? We're talking a needle in a haystack that were struck on the wrong planchet, with the wrong die alignment, or under conditions that weren't supposed to happen. Then imagine that those few escaped. No alarms, no recalls, no record. Just quietly slipped into circulation like nothing happened. Collectors have speculated for years that a small batch of 2005 pennies were struck on experimental copper-coated zinc planchets with different alloy inconsistencies, leaving a color tone and metallic sheen that doesn't match the rest. Some were rumored to have unusual die deterioration patterns, forming irregularities in the date, the beard, the lettering, and even in the fields around Lincoln's portrait. But the most shocking detail? A tiny percentage show no mint mark at all where the Philadelphia identifier should be. A missing fingerprint from the mint itself. Here's where the emotion hits. Because beginners see a penny like that and think nothing of it. Toss it aside. But seasoned collectors, the men and women who have been hunting coins for 30, 40, even 50 years, they feel something when they see a mistake like that. A tug, a spark, a sense that maybe, just maybe, they're standing at the edge of a discovery that could change everything. The kind of discovery that turns an ordinary night sorting change at the kitchen table into the moment you find the coin that makes your heart stop. Another attention reset. Here's what you must look for if you want any chance of identifying the 2005 no mint mark penny worth up to $1.7 million. First, the missing mint mark. A true no mint mark 2005 penny is not just faint, it's completely absent. No trace under magnification. No weak strike impression. Nothing. The space next to the date should be clean, smooth, and uninterrupted. Then the metal surface. The rare ones show a strange, slightly different sheen, especially under bright LED light. Many collectors describe the surface as having a silky, almost glassy texture, not like a normal copper-plated zinc set. Under magnification, you might see unusual flow lines, almost like ripples in water, radiating around Lincoln's jaw and the temple area. On some examples, the letters in Liberty appear thicker or slightly stretched, as if the die shifted during striking. Now flip it over. On the reverse, look at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. On known rare examples, the steps appear underdeveloped, as if not fully struck. Some lines fade abruptly. Some look doubled. And on a handful, the roofline of the memorial shows a subtle but unmistakable tilt, a sign of minor die misalignment. You find all these traits together, and you're not holding a penny. You're holding a life-altering discovery. A piece of mint history the general public doesn't know exists. And that's where the drama deepens. Because the coin world has seen it before. Coins that were once dismissed as damaged, altered, or junk later turned out to be multi-million-dollar treasures. Remember the 1943 bronze cent, the 1969 S double die, the 1975 no S proof dime. Every one of them was ignored at first, brushed aside by people who didn't look closely enough. You're sitting at your desk, the lights dim, a mug of coffee in one hand, a pile of change in front of you. You pick up a 2005 penny. You look at it, but something stops you. Something about the way it catches the light. You bring it closer. You tilt it. You look again. And your heart starts beating faster because the mint mark is missing, and suddenly you're sweating. Suddenly you're not just a collector. You're the discoverer. The first person in the world to recognize what you're holding. Drama aside, that feeling, that adrenaline rush, is what keeps collectors searching. The belief that the next coin could be the one. That tucked between worn pennies and scratched up nickels. There might be a mistake the world hasn't noticed yet. A mistake the mint would never publicly. Some experts estimate fewer than a dozen of these 2005 no mint mark error pennies exist. Maybe fewer. Maybe only 3 or 4. And if even one of those specimens hits the auction block in high grade, the bidding frenzy would be unlike anything we've seen in years. $1 million bids wouldn't be surprising. Some believe $1.7 million is a conservative estimate because serious collectors are starving for the next major Lincoln cent discovery. And when demand is that intense, value becomes something entirely different. Emotional, historic, competitive, sometimes irrational. Collectors don't just buy these coins for their rarity. They buy them because these coins tell a story. A story of an error so strange it shouldn't exist. A story of chance, of timing, of the right eyes noticing the right detail at the right moment. A story that someone, maybe someone watching this, might be living right now without knowing it. Let's reset once more. Because this is where inspiration meets reality. If you take anything from this, let it be this simple thought. Treasure is not always buried underground or locked in vaults. Sometimes treasure jingles casually in your pocket. Sometimes it sits in a dusty jar on a shelf. Sometimes it waits decades for someone to finally pay attention. But this time, something stops you. A tiny voice in your head whispers, what if this one isn't ordinary at all? What if you're looking at one of the rarest mistakes in U.S. mint history? A 1987 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin some collectors believe could reach values close to $1.8 million if the right conditions and errors align. And what if that $1 million miracle has been hiding in your pocket change for decades? This is not a fairy tale. This is a real possibility. Because the most dangerous coins aren't the flashy ones, they're the ones that look completely normal. The ones nobody thinks twice about. The ones that slip through the cracks of history like ghosts. And few coins are more mysterious than the 1987 no mint Mark Lincoln penny. Now stay with me, because the story behind this coin is stranger than anything Hollywood could come up with. Every collector knows the Philadelphia Mint usually strikes pennies with no mint mark. That's normal. But in 1987, something was different. Something quietly shifted. Something unexpected happened behind closed doors, and to this day, the Mint has never fully explained it. Look closely at a real 1987 penny. Almost all of them show the tiniest, faintest trace of a mint mark detail in their design structure. Not the letter P, but an imprint pattern the Mint switched to in the mid-80s. But a handful of 1987 coins show absolutely nothing. No trace of the expected texture in the usual location. No sign that the die was produced under standard quality controls. These coins have a smoothness, a purity, a strange flatness that feels wrong. Wrong in a way that only seasoned collectors notice. And that absence, that mysterious, perfectly clean absence, is what makes these coins extremely valuable. Let's reset for a moment. Imagine flipping through your penny rolls like you've done 1,000 times. Your eyes glazed over, your mind half asleep, and then suddenly you freeze. You see something you can't quite explain. The date 1987, and no mint mark at all, not even the usual design texture that should be there. Your heart jumps. Your fingers start shaking. Because you realize you might be holding one of the rarest modern pennies ever discovered. Collectors chase this coin because it fits a pattern only seen in a few legendary minting accidents. Accidents that have produced million-dollar coins before. If a true 1987 no mint mark error came from a test die, an experimental die, or an undocumented production mistake, its value could explode far beyond normal expectations. Some experts believe the market could push such a coin into seven-figure territory if it surfaced in high grade. But here's where it gets emotional. Think about the journey of a penny. Think about how far a single coin can travel in almost 40 years. It's been through gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines, glove boxes, pockets, drawers, and who knows where else. It's impossible to track, impossible to predict where one might end up. And that means one thing. The rarest pennies don't live in museums. They live out here, with us, in everyday circulation, in random handfuls of change, in old jars on dusty shelves, in containers you haven't touched in 20 years. Reset your attention, because this is the part that could change your life. Grab any 1987 penny and hold it under strong light. Focus on the area right below the date, just above the rim. On a normal 1987 cent, the die leaves behind a tiny manufacturing texture where the mint mark position would be today, even though there's no letter. Sometimes it looks like a microscopic shadow, sometimes like a faint manufacturing scar, but a true no mint mark anomaly will not have that texture at all. The field will be smooth, uninterrupted, almost suspiciously perfect. That smoothness is the key. If the surface looks untouched, without the slightest hint of roughness, you could be holding something extraordinary. Next, check for sharp details. The bust of Lincoln should be crisp, the lettering bold, the date perfectly defined. The rarer error coins usually come from early-stage dies, meaning the strikes are clean and beautiful. Damage doesn't make it rare. Sharpness does, and don't forget the color. A 1987 no mark candidate in brilliant red or red-brown condition would be worth dramatically more. We're talking life-changing money. We're talking million-dollar levels of value, the kind that sends shockwaves through the entire collecting world. Imagine a collector in his garage, sifting through old change out of pure boredom. He picks up a penny he hasn't thought about in years. He wipes it on his shirt, and then it hits him. No mint mark, no texture, a perfect strike. He takes a deep breath because he knows. He knows he's looking at a once-in-a-generation discovery. This isn't just a coin. This is a miracle. A tiny copper time capsule worth more than most people make in a lifetime. Now think about your own coins. Think about the jars in your closet, the cups on your dresser, the boxes full of change you've been meaning to cash in but never did. Why haven't you? Maybe this is why. Maybe something in your gut has been telling you to wait, to look closer, to take one more careful glance before giving it all away. Because if even one of those coins is a true 1987 no mint mark error, you're looking at a fortune. You're looking at a story you'll tell for the rest of your life. A discovery that transforms an ordinary day into a moment of destiny. You don't need to be lucky. You just need to pay attention. History hides in plain sight. Treasure hides in your pocket. And the greatest discoveries are made by people who simply decide to look. A possibility hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right set of eyes to recognize it. And today, those eyes might be yours. Every year, millions of Lincoln pennies pass through our hands unnoticed, but the 2011 D Mint Mark penny has a story that collectors whisper about. It's the kind of story that makes you stop, breathe, and rethink every coin you've ever spent. Because this isn't just a modern penny. It's a coin tied to one of the most mysterious production quirks in recent U.S. mint history. And for some collectors, those quirks have turned an ordinary cent into a life-changing treasure. Before we go deeper, reset your attention for a moment. Imagine hearing the faint clink of coins inside a drawer. Now imagine that same sound becoming the moment your entire life changes, because one of those coins is the rare 2011 D anomaly. The story begins in Denver, a year when the mint was transitioning equipment, recalibrating presses, and handling new planchet shipments. Somewhere in that process, a handful of coins slipped through with peculiar traits. Theories swirl around production rooms, late-night shifts, and pallets of mixed metal blanks. Some say an experimental batch was tested. Others swear that an unrecorded die state produced a tiny number of coins with microscopic markers, now prized by elite collectors. Reset your attention again. Picture a quiet moment in your home. A desk lamp, a magnifying glass, a pile of pennies you've been meaning to sort. And then one coin suddenly feels different, heavier with possibility. What makes the 2011 D penny so thrilling is the combination of condition, rarity of clean strikes, and the presence of certain die characteristics that collectors believe came from a brief, undocumented run at the Denver Mint. Here's what you need to look for. First, the D Mint mark must be sharp, clean, and perfectly placed. No tilt, no smearing. Second, check the overall strike. A rare few 2011 D pennies show unusually strong details in Lincoln's hair and beard, details that normally appear weaker on mass-produced modern cents. Third, inspect the shield on the reverse. The vertical lines on the shield should be crisp and fully separated, without the blurring that most circulated pennies show. And fourth, look at the fields, the flat areas around the design. The rare high-value examples have nearly flawless fields, almost proof-like even though they're business strikes. Reset your focus again. Take a breath. Imagine turning a penny slowly under the light, and every turn feels like you're revealing a secret the world forgot to mention. But the story doesn't end with sharp details. What makes a select handful of these 2011 D pennies worth serious money is a combination of immaculate condition and unexplained die markers. Some elite collectors have spent years hunting for a complete explanation, but no one can fully agree how these flawless pieces slipped out. All we know is that every time one surfaces in top grade, bidders lose their minds. Prices spike, collectors scramble, and suddenly, a regular coin becomes a meteor streaking through the numismatic world. This time, imagine a quiet auction room, the kind where the tension hums in the air. A simple Lincoln penny appears on the screen, a penny most people would never look at twice. And then someone in the room whispers, there it is. The rare die state. The bidding begins. And by the end, a coin that cost 1 cent has rocketed into the six-figure stratosphere. Some collectors believe a perfect example could reach $1 million under the right circumstances. What makes this coin so emotional for collectors is that it reminds us of something we often forget, that even the smallest, plainest objects in our daily lives can carry unimaginable value. This isn't just about money. It's about discovery. It's about hope. It's about the thrill of holding something the world overlooked. Reset again. Think of every penny you've ever dropped in a parking lot. Every coin tossed into a cup holder. Any one of those could have been the penny that changes everything. Now let me tell you a story that collectors love. A man in his 60s, lifelong hobbyist, spent decades searching rolls of modern pennies just for fun. One evening, he opened a fresh roll from the bank and out slid a penny so clean, so sharply struck, he froze. His hands actually shook. When he examined it under magnification, the fields were mirror-like, and the details were razor-sharp, far superior to the typical 2011 D. After sending it in for grading, the results came back, one of the best-known examples on record. Overnight, dealers began calling him. Offers grew larger, and suddenly his harmless hobby became the single biggest discovery of his life. Reset again. Feel that moment. The quiet click of the envelope. The grading results glowing back at him like a miracle. Collectors like you know that value comes from rarity, condition, and demand. The 2011 D penny hits all three when the stars align. Only a microscopic fraction have the flawless fields and deep strikes needed to reach top grades. And those top grades are where the money lives. That's where the million-dollar dreams begin. And that's why people are searching every single day. Picture your own collection. Your jars, your drawers, your stray rolls of coins. Imagine one penny hiding among them that you've never bothered to check, waiting silently, patiently, for the right light and the right moment. Here's how to identify the rarest examples clearly. Under bright angled light, look first for the exceptional strike. Lincoln's bow tie should be crisp. Every line, every edge. Next, look at the word Liberty. The rare coins show no smearing, no doubling, no weak letters. Then examine the shield. Every stripe separated, every detail pronounced. If the coin looks sharper than every other 2011 D you've seen, that's your first clue. Finally, turn it sideways. The luster should dance, not crawl. Top-grade examples have a rolling, silky shine that modern pennies rarely show. Reset again. Let the idea sink in. This treasure isn't buried underground. It isn't locked in a museum. It's already in circulation, traveling through grocery stores, gas stations, and pockets just like yours. Imagine laying out 10 random 2011 D pennies in a row. 9 look normal, and then there's one that just feels different. The shine, the strike, the presence. A penny that almost demands your attention. That's the one collectors chase. That's the one that turns simple curiosity into heart-pounding excitement. Another reset. Think about the feeling of flipping through a coin roll, one after the other, until suddenly your breath catches. That pause, that stillness, that's what the rare 2011 D penny creates. Some collectors believe that fewer than a handful of these top-tier examples exist in the wild. And when a coin reaches that level of rarity, the value doesn't just rise. It explodes. That's where $1 million stops sounding like a dream and starts sounding like an outcome waiting to happen. Reset once more. Imagine the weight of a single penny sitting in your palm. Light, ordinary, forgettable, and yet possibly worth more than your car, your house, your retirement account. The reason this coin inspires so much passion is simple. It proves that discoveries are still out there. Not just in ancient coins or early mint history, but in the change you handle every day. You don't need a shovel. You don't need a map. You just need curiosity, patience, and the knowledge of what to look for. But right now, somewhere in America, a coin worth over $1 million is hiding in plain sight. It could be buried in a drawer, lying loose in a jar of pennies, or tucked in an old collection that hasn't been opened in decades. This is not a rumor. This is real. A 1980 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, ordinary at first glance, has quietly become one of the most sought-after coins in the collector world. And finding one could change your life forever. But how did a simple penny, minted over 40 years ago, become a $1 million treasure? The story begins in 1980, a year when the U.S. Mint was transitioning to new production methods, adjusting dies, and quietly making tiny, almost invisible errors. Most coins from that era were ordinary, minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But some slipped through the cracks, and those mistakes turned into gold for collectors decades later. Imagine holding a penny in your hand that looks just like every other 1980 Lincoln cent. The copper gleams, Lincoln's profile stares back at you, and you think, it's just a penny. But hidden in that simplicity is a rare secret. The coin carries no mint mark, and it was struck with a unique combination of die and planchet that makes it one of the rarest modern cents ever produced. Out of millions, only a handful are known to exist, and each one carries a value that most people can't even fathom. Over $1 million. The journey of this coin is almost cinematic. Many of these pennies were meant to be ordinary, sent out into circulation, never noticed, never treasured. And yet, decades later, collectors and experts began spotting subtle anomalies, tiny differences in the way Lincoln's face was struck, the rim, and the lettering. These differences might seem insignificant to the untrained eye, but to a collector, they are priceless clues. Finding one isn't about luck alone. It's about knowing exactly what to look for. Here's how you can identify a 1980 no mint mark Lincoln penny. First, check the mint mark area under the date. If it's empty, that's the first sign. Then, examine the penny closely with a magnifying glass. Look for sharper details on Lincoln's hair, the lines of his coat, and the depth of the date stamping. Many authentic million-dollar pennies also display a slightly thicker rim and a subtle doubling effect in the lettering, a ghostly echo of the minting process. Learn these details, and suddenly, ordinary pennies become potential treasure. Somewhere, right now, someone could be holding this exact penny in their hand, completely unaware of what it's worth. The emotional weight of that thought is staggering. Imagine discovering that a coin you found in a pocket change roll or inherited from a relative could suddenly turn your life upside down. That feeling of disbelief, excitement, and awe is exactly what collectors chase. It's the thrill of seeing history in your hand and realizing it carries more than sentimental value. It carries a fortune. The mystery deepens when you learn how these coins escaped notice for so long. The U.S. Mint was meticulous, but even the most careful operations have exceptions. Some coins were set aside accidentally, some slipped through quality control, and some were simply lost in circulation. Decades later, collectors began connecting the dots, identifying patterns, and tracing origins. That's how the 1980 no mint mark Lincoln penny was elevated from common pocket change to a million-dollar legend. Now, pause for a moment and picture yourself sitting at a kitchen table, sifting through old jars of pennies. Every coin seems ordinary. You stop, pick up a 1980 penny, tilt it under the light, and something clicks. The empty mint mark, the sharp details, the depth of the date, your heart races. Could this be it? The realization hits. This coin is rare, incredibly rare, and it might just be worth over $1 million. That rush, that instant of awe, is the essence of coin collecting. Always check rolls from banks, old coin collections from family, and even loose change hidden in drawers. Millions of coins were minted in 1980, but only a handful carry this hidden fortune. A single well-placed magnifying glass and a careful eye could turn something ordinary into an unimaginable windfall. It's about patience, attention to detail, and a willingness to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. And remember, while other collectibles might fade in value, this penny carries a certainty few investments ever do. The history is verifiable, the rarity is documented, and the market is real. Collectors around the world are paying top dollar for authenticated specimens. There are stories of pennies that were found, sold, and instantly changed the lives of their owners. Families suddenly secured financially, dreams realized overnight, all because someone recognized a tiny copper coin for what it truly is, $1 million treasure. Every time you handle a coin, consider the story it carries. The 1980 no mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just metal, it's history. It's chance. It's fortune waiting for the right person to notice. The emotional connection is powerful because you're not just holding a coin, you're holding a key to possibility. A single discovery could redefine your understanding of luck, patience, and reward. So, the next time you see a 1980 penny without a mint mark, don't dismiss it. Hold it, examine it, study it. Learn the subtle markers, the faint anomalies, the unique characteristics that separate an ordinary penny from one worth over $1 million. Remember, millions of coins exist, but only a precious few carry this life-altering potential. But what if I told you that one coin, hiding in plain sight, could be worth over $1 million? Yes, a single 1970 Lincoln penny with no mint mark could change your life forever, and most people don't even realize it's there. It all begins in 1970, a year like any other. But quietly, the U.S. Mint was making a subtle mistake, a tiny error so small that millions of coins went unnoticed. These coins were meant to carry a mint mark, a tiny symbol showing where they were made. But a few pennies slipped through, without a mark, quietly waiting decades for someone sharp-eyed enough to notice. Imagine the thrill of finding one. Ordinary, copper-colored, maybe a little worn. You pick it up, and nothing about it screams treasure. But this tiny piece of metal could be worth $1 million. $1 million. One coin, one chance. The people who have found these pennies aren't millionaires by luck. They know how to see what most people overlook. First, look at the obverse side, the side with Lincoln's profile. That profile hasn't changed in decades, but the secret is in the details around his head. If the coin has no mint mark at all, no D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, and the date reads 1970, congratulations, you may be holding something extraordinary. These no mint mark pennies are rare because the mint accidentally skipped the mark on a tiny batch, and over the years, even fewer have survived in collectible condition. The backstory makes this coin almost mythical. Over the decades, collectors have chased it, searched through rolls and drawers, looking for that single coin that could turn an ordinary day into a $1 million discovery. Some have traveled across states, examined boxes of pennies from garage sales, and stared at tiny copper discs under magnifying glasses for hours. The thrill is in the hunt, the suspense and the possibility that the next coin you pull could be the one. Now, let's talk condition. A worn penny can still be valuable, but a sharp, uncirculated 1970 no mint mark penny is what brings $1 million offers. Look for details. Lincoln's cheekbones, the lines of his coat, the clarity of the date. Even a small scratch or discoloration can affect value. But millions have been made from pennies that simply survived in circulation without being destroyed. Think about the emotions tied to this. Imagine holding a coin your parents dropped into a jar decades ago, completely unaware of what it was worth. The realization hits like lightning. That ordinary penny in your hand isn't ordinary at all. It's a key to unimaginable possibilities. People have made life-changing decisions after discovering coins like this. Homes purchased, debts cleared, dreams funded, all because someone recognized a coin others dismissed every 1 or 2 minutes. Remember, the story resets. The coin is small, the world is large, but the stakes are enormous. This is not just history, this is a chance. Your chance. Every drawer, every couch cushion, every dusty coin jar is a potential treasure chest. The hunt is endless, but the reward is real. Collectors who have held these pennies describe it as almost spiritual, the connection between past and present. You touch a coin minted in 1970, and you're linking your story with hundreds of millions of coins that passed through hands long gone. Yet, this one coin could be the one that matters more than the rest. The universe has a way of hiding extraordinary things in plain sight, waiting for eyes that truly notice. Some people panic when they hear about a $1 million penny. They think it's impossible. But the truth is, the market proves it every year. Buyers are willing to pay astonishing sums for the right coin. That little copper disc can unlock dreams, ambitions, and freedom, not in some distant future, but today, in the hands of someone who can recognize it. In the grand ocean of U.S. currency, only a tiny fraction were minted without the mark, and even fewer survived, let alone in collectible condition. That rarity is what makes them so desirable, and rarity drives the value to heights most people only imagine in stories, not in wallets. Now, a practical tip. When you look through coins, don't just glance. Examine the date closely. Examine the area around it. Use a magnifying glass. Check the shine and the wear. Compare it to pennies with mint marks. Every subtle difference matters. One small detail can separate a 1-cent penny from a $1 million fortune. Emotionally, the power of this coin is undeniable. It represents patience, curiosity, and luck, sure, but also the reward for paying attention. People overlook it because it seems ordinary, but it's precisely that ordinariness that hides its power. What's hidden in plain sight often holds the greatest value. Think of the stories that have been made. Ordinary people stumbling upon extraordinary wealth, thanks to a keen eye and a little persistence. These stories inspire collectors to look again, to dig deeper, and to hold hope that the next coin could be the life changer. That's the magic of the 1970 no mint mark Lincoln penny. It's more than metal. It's opportunity, history, and fortune all rolled into one.